Tonight we're driving the all-new 2024 Mercedes-Benz E450 4MATIC. This starts at around $69,000. As tested, this is 90 grand with quite a few options. We'll include all those in detail in the description. We have a 3-liter turbocharged inline 6 with a 48-volt mild hybrid system. That makes 375 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque. Of course, it's all-wheel drive. We have air suspension, 4-wheel steering. These, in my opinion, beautiful 21-inch wheels with 245s in the front and 275s in the rear. On the outside, this is painted in MANUFAKTUR Alpine gray, and inside we have Tonka brown Nappa leather, which looks very nice, even though it has kind of a strange name. Most of the design changes happen on the inside, and we're about to hop in and start this up, but let's just walk around the outside real quick. We have some differences in the taillights. Those kind of mimic the Mercedes-Benz logo with the star right there. And the rest of this E-Class looks pretty similar to the old version. I guess the rear end is a little bit different. We still get plenty of nice trunk space. No spare tire, but some more cargo space down there as well. Back seats are about as roomy as they used to be. Ingress and egress is a little bit tricky. Sometimes you bump your head on this, getting in the front or the back. And we also get these door handles, which pop out when you unlock the vehicle. And you can see at night, they've got a nice little LED surround. We also have that in the front grille. Only complaint about these door handles is that sometimes when you approach the vehicle, actually most of the time, they don't pop out for you, so you have to kind of give them a little reminder. All right, let's hop inside, start this up. Inside, we have a lot of similarities to the new S-Class, which means lots of screens and kind of a more minimalist, simple design here. I really like what they did with the vents on the dashboard. We've got some pretty cool looking ambient lighting tonight. That's one reason why we're filming this as a night drive. Listen carefully to the startup. You'll notice there is no starter noise thanks to that 48-volt mild hybrid system. That 3-liter turbo inline 6 just rises to the occasion and sits at about 600 RPM. As soon as you put your seatbelt on, it gives you a little tug to make sure that it's snug. And look at all these screens. Passenger has their own screen. You have a central infotainment display here, head-up display, and then your fully digital gauge cluster. Very similar steering wheel controls as we've seen in a lot of other Mercedes models. You can change your gauge cluster theme, your head-up display theme. I like this classic gauge cluster. It's just nice and simple. These steering wheel buttons do take some getting used to. They're not quite haptic, but they are all touch controls, and they just take a little bit of finesse and delicacy. And once you kind of calibrate yourself to these buttons, it's kind of how you drive this car as well. It takes a bit of finesse. Everything is a light touch and a little bit sensitive. So we'll talk about this infotainment here in a minute, but we do have some physical controls below the screen. One to show us our quick access menu to a bunch of different functions from our 3D driver display, which you actually can't see through the camera because you need 2 eyeballs to look at that because it is 3D. Very cool feature and pretty neat to experience in person. The gauges kind of jump out at you from whatever's in the background, whatever's in this central display here. I think it's a really neat feature. Sorry I can't really show it to you on camera tonight. We've got air suspension so we can raise and lower the vehicle, and over here we've got some settings for our driving assistance, from auto lane change to active steering assist. We can turn that on and off. More settings and menus in there, but that's that quick access. It's nice to have that quick access button. We also get quick access control to our parking cameras, so we can see forward, ahead of us, behind us. That's all very nice. And we've also got our drive modes here: Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Individual. No volume knob, but just this little slider here, which again, not a big fan of this. I would like some physical controls for volume, and it would be nice to have some physical controls for climate in this Mercedes-Benz. We just get these icons down here where you can change your fan speed, your temperature, and then you've got a climate menu. Thankfully, this infotainment is very fast, very responsive, and I've got to say, living with it this week, it is very intuitive and easy to use right off the bat. They've simplified everything. This is my favorite iteration of this new MBUX system. So props to Mercedes for that. They've done a nice job with it. Again, it would always be nice to get more physical controls in these luxury vehicles. I feel like we're missing something. We're missing some feeling of quality, and the lack of physicality in a lot of these luxury cars just kind of cheapens the overall feel of them, in my opinion. There's a reason why luxury watches still have automatic or manual wind movements, and they're not just digital watches anymore. I think the same could be said for our luxury vehicles. The lack of really nice, sturdy feeling buttons and switchgear, I think it takes away a little bit from the experience inside the vehicle. That said, though, this infotainment is probably some of the best in the business. I prefer it to BMW's new iDrive 8.5 system. Overall, it's pretty easy to use. CarPlay connects wirelessly and seamlessly. It just still doesn't take up the whole screen, which is kind of weird because a lot of other companies can do that very easily. You've got a bunch of apps here. You can play Angry Birds in this Mercedes-Benz, which is pretty cool. We've got Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Sudoku, lots of different things you can do. Down here, some more storage. We've got a cup holder, water bottle holder, wireless charging, a couple USB ports, some more storage right here in the middle, and these funky looking headrests, and voice command just keeps popping up all the time. You can only enable the passenger screen if you're sitting in the passenger seat, so we'll hop over there in a minute and show you what that's all about. Basically, it's just some mirrored menus from what's in the main infotainment display. Let's hop in the back of this E450. This is my driving position at 5'10". See how much room I have back here. Honestly, I thought there would be more space in the back of this E-Class. The GLA that we had a few weeks ago felt a little bit roomier than this. Of course, that is a different body style, but this is fine. I mean, I have a decent amount of headroom. Ingress and egress is a little bit rough with this C-pillar being a little bit lower here, but again, this is a sedan. It's not a wagon or an SUV, and that is part of the form factor. What do you guys think about all this ambient lighting and the interior design? I think it's striking. It looks good. It's pretty functional. At the end of the day, I think it achieves its goal of being tech-forward, modern, and luxurious. All right, it's getting a little bit dark, so we want to go for a drive here soon. Let's pop the hood real quick. This engine is rated for 22 miles to the gallon in the city and 31 miles to the gallon on the highway. Very quiet, very smooth, nice and torquey with the 48-volt mild hybrid system. It is a great powertrain, and paired with this 9-speed automatic transmission, again, very smooth and very easy to live with. Here's a view of those lights at night. This new E-Class is kind of both understated and a little bit flashier in some ways. The taillights are really unique, kind of a departure from Mercedes. And you just get that glint of all the ambient lighting and the interior wrapping itself around. Of course, you can turn all that stuff off, but if you have it, why would you? There's a little bit of bling here. Door handles are a little bit weird to grab. But again, you get used to all the kind of ergonomics in this interior. Steering wheel is massive. Steering is ultra light. We get rear wheel steer up to 10 degrees of angle. The turning radius is wild. Before we go for a drive, let me hop over into the passenger seat. As promised, I'll show you what that screen looks like. All right, we can turn it on right here. And again, we've got a profile that you can load, navigation, radio, media, apps. You can see various driving info, which is pretty cool. Horsepower, control volume. There's also an option here for Bluetooth headphones if you want to listen to music or watch YouTube. Anyway, so there's the passenger screen. Not sure it's entirely necessary, but it's there if you want it in your E-Class. Since this is a night drive, we'll give you guys some night driving impressions. Headlight performance, we'll test that out once it gets a little bit darker on the road. Interior lighting is nice and bright, kind of a warmer tone, which works really well with this Nappa brown leather interior, or sorry, Tonka Nappa leather brown. All right, we've already kind of shown you our cameras, but for how big this display is, I wish our camera view were a little bit larger. Kind of strange that it isn't. Column shifter, love to see it. Super easy to use. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time for you to go from drive to reverse to drive, and that could be a little bit tedious in parking situations, but you get used to it. You learn to be patient with this car. There's a lot of power, a lot of performance here, but again, it doesn't really encourage you to be in a rush. It's a very relaxing experience. I think the Inline 6 sounds good too. We have paddle shifters behind the wheel. Let's test out sport mode. Yeah, it is properly quick. Very fast shifts from that 9-speed auto. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have eco mode, which will actually shut off the engine when you lift off the gas. There you go. And you can just coast for what seems like forever. Very little rolling resistance here. Engine fires back up seamlessly, matches its revs. All right, we've got some pretty cool driving assistance tech here too. So let's engage that. Our lane centering, our steering assist, works really, really well. We can change lanes very easily just by turning on our turn signal. The car will also auto lane change if we have that setting turned on, and that it'll pass slower vehicles. So kind of a neat feature to have if that's your thing. We have following distance settings right here. You can get pretty close to the vehicle in front of you. Change 5-mile-an-hour increments with your speed. Once you get used to the steering wheel controls, it all makes sense, but on initial impressions, it is a little bit tedious to kind of figure out what is what, as all the buttons feel about the same. Very, very quiet here at speed. A little bit of noise from these 21-inch wheels over potholes and expansion joints, but for the most part, this is a pretty luxurious interior in terms of ride comfort and NVH. I love the steering in this new E-Class. It's very, very quick, and of course that 4-wheel steering system is working at speed, turning all wheels in the same direction to aid in handling, and at lower speeds, turning wheels in different directions to kind of get you around the corner a little bit easier. We'll show you guys what the handling looks like here on an entrance ramp. Actually, let's go into sport mode. Headlight performance here is excellent. Lots of good visibility at night. Brake pedal's a little bit squishy. Your foot dips down into the pedal about 1.5 inches, 2 inches before anything starts to happen. In sport mode, this is so flat. This is a properly quick Mercedes-Benz. I'm impressed. Ride is still soft and floaty, even in sport mode, but it just corners so flat. Dynamically, this feels great. I prefer this to the S-Class in terms of its driving dynamics. It handles a lot better. It's a bit more fun to drive, but it still retains that really smooth, comfortable, soft luxurious ride quality that we kind of expect from a Mercedes-Benz. But this is just a little bit sportier. It's kind of that perfect...
Unfortunately, I cannot...
It's kind of the best of both worlds. It's both sporting and luxurious. And that's honestly what the E-Class has always excelled at. It's kind of that sweet spot in terms of size, price point. Occasionally, if you rush this off the line, you can get some rougher starts as the engine tries to catch up to how much throttle you're giving it. So again, you have to be kind of patient and take your time when you're driving this car.
Unfortunately, I cannot...
I could see her coming on a lot during just normal conversation. That would be annoying. It's just so maneuverable with that rear wheel steer. And the power is just fantastic. We're just in comfort mode right now. I don't know what the infotainment is doing. It's just selecting its own menus on its own. CarPlay stopped working. Okay. The torque here is just immense too. You don't need to rev this car out to get the power out of it. We're just in comfort mode now. Still handles really, really well. Partially thanks to these Continental tires. It's a more summer performance-oriented tire, honestly. Not a lot of steering feel, but the steering is so satisfyingly light, and this car is so agile at high and low speeds that I don't really mind that it's pretty much dead. Ambient lighting. Let's turn our brightness down just a little bit. You can control each zone individually or turn it all up and down all at once, which is very nice. That's probably what I would do. That's impressive. I like the paddle shifters too. They have a nice click to them. All right, so how can we sum up some thoughts on the new Mercedes-Benz E-Class? Overall, I've actually really enjoyed this week. I haven't been the biggest fan of the new S-Class. I feel like the tech integration hasn't been the best, and it just didn't quite drive on the road as nice as I would like it to. This is an improvement. I would actually almost prefer this over the S-Class. It's priced a little bit more affordably, and as an overall complete and cohesive package, I think it's kind of the better car in some ways. This is surprisingly fun to drive. It's got fantastic power. Hopefully at some point we'll get to drive an AMG variant of this. It seems like Mercedes is giving us a few more features standard in this new generation, which is nice. And overall, I've just enjoyed my time behind the wheel of this week. Let's see if we can find our screen brightness here. Displays, where are we? It would be nice if we had a physical control for our interior screen brightness. There's just so much going on here, so much light in the cabin that it would be nice to just dim it all down. I'll be honest, these are mostly just some first impressions on this car this week. I haven't really spent enough time to really get to know its quirks, maybe some of its faults and idiosyncrasies with its tech. We've had some strange things go on in this video. I'm not also very sure about Mercedes reliability these days. We've had a few Mercedes products recently that have come through the driveway and that we've had for a week to test, and they've just broken. There was a CLA that I was supposed to test a few weeks ago, and I couldn't get a video on it because every time you'd accelerate, it would go into limp mode. And then last year, I think we had a GLE that just kept bricking itself in the driveway, and they had to come pick it up. So I haven't had the best personal experience with Mercedes reliability recently, and I know their reliability ratings aren't the best in places like Consumer Reports, etc. So I would probably want to do your due diligence on that. Yeah, in stop and go traffic, there are some rougher starts as you transition from brake pedal to gas pedal, and it takes that engine just a second to kick on. You can turn off auto stop, but I don't know, you might have to toggle it on and off
Unfortunately, the Rico's
every time you start up the vehicle. It's hard to get through a review of this car without the infotainment system constantly interrupting you. I feel like some of the tech in here would be useful, and some of it would be extremely annoying to live with, and a lot of it you would just disable, turn off. At the end of the day, I can't really help but wonder if all this tech really makes for a better, more luxurious driving experience, if it's actually really a value add to a vehicle. Do all these screens belong in something that you're going to be driving in and moving around in that doesn't have fully autonomous driving assistance features? I don't know. I think it's a little bit too much. I think a lot of these luxury brands are just going a bit too far with their infotainments, with their screens. I've got to say this E-Class does a pretty good job with their infotainment. It's one of the better systems now. I think Mercedes has done a good job simplifying the system and making it easier to use and live with and operate, and I commend them on that. You compare this to the new BMW 5 Series with the iDrive 8.5. This is a much easier vehicle to live with and use and operate over what BMW is doing with their systems these days. So I think Mercedes-Benz kind of is going in the right direction with their screens and with their tech here, but still I'm not really sure if ultimately it's the right direction. All right, guys, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. We'll walk you guys around this one more time, and that'll be a wrap for this video. Take care.